Signing day is always a really, really cool day with these guys. And it's you start recruiting some of them when they're really young. And it's just, one of these special moments in a young person's life. Stepping stone, I guess you'd say, milestone. But it's a, complete honor as a coach to be in the journey with these young men and help them achieve their dreams and goals, and we always talk about recruiting, and recruiting's a lot of things now, more than it's ever been. But, to me, recruiting's about finding the right fit, where you can grow into the best version of yourself as a young man, with the goal of a 4 to 5 year window, turning into the very best you can be when you face the real world and college ends. And on the field, off the field, obviously as an athlete, but as a student and as a grown man. And so I take that as a huge responsibility, and I'm thankful to all the players' parents that have signed and joined us today. And there's more coming that I can't announce because we have a handful of guys that have announcements tonight, tomorrow, and the next day. It's just how their schools are doing them. And as you know, until they do that, I can't. So there will be a few more that aren't talked about today that will be talked about by the end of the week. But for the 26 that did sign that I'm allowed to speak about, we're super excited. And it's a class that, when you go through it by state, 7 in-state players, 4 from Georgia, 4 from Florida, which has always been, our major footprint. If you look at our roster, South Carolina, and then we've ventured up northeast a little bit like we have in the past with New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Alabama is actually becoming a better and better place for us in recruiting, with the Mobile area, and Birmingham. So, getting into that area, super excited. We were able to get a kid out of the Midwest in Illinois with Stephen Brown, and then 1 player from Virginia and 1 from Maryland. 11 of these young men were captains of their football teams, which I love, and pretty cool to have so many. I think it's 15 multi-sport athletes in this class, which is something I also love, guys that are competing, not just in football, but year round. And quite a few, positions that are represented, and there'll be, as I said, a few more additions to it. But really excited about the skill. And we needed to add more players in those positions, and feel like several of these guys will be able to play early in our program. But it's unique, it comes on you fast that you play your last game on Saturday, and 4 days later is signing day. And some of these guys are still playing. We've got several of them that are still in the playoffs themselves and have, state championships they're trying to gain in as a team. And then you turn around and, January 12th, we'll have 22 to 26 of these guys moving in mid-year. And so it's amazing how quickly all this stuff goes. And known a lot of these guys for a long time, some of them not as long. I mean, I've known Aiden Small since he was a freshman, and Jacob Smith, known a long time. And then some of these guys, you get to know in their sophomore or junior, and some of them even in their senior years. So really excited. I want to say thanks and give my recruiting staff a shout out. There's 3 areas in there now, the way we have our recruiting staff, but Andy Vaughn is our general manager and does a great job. And he's the one that handles, the communication with families and agents and everything that goes into this now from a rev share standpoint. On the recruiting side, Alex Falk, who we call Shug, and his staff do a tremendous job. Lafayette Stewart, and he, when kids come on campus, do so much showing these guys around. Tyler Jones, one of our former players, same thing. Those 3 guys do an amazing job representing us and showing kids around on campus. Taylor McDonald and Shelby are on-campus recruiting coordinators. I think Taylor is probably the best hire I've made in a long time. what she does in the recruiting office is just fantastic. And then Austin Shelton and Vinny and Daniel, what they do in a player evaluation, they're on our player personnel side. And so you have a player personnel side, you have a recruiting side, and you have a general manager and an on-campus recruiting side. It's a lot of moving parts in recruiting, you know, and you don't get them for a lot. Some of these kids come up here once or twice, so you don't get a lot of time with them, and you got to put your best foot forward and be as, you know, capable as possible of showing them what the experience will be like. And I thought our recruiting staff did a tremendous job of that this year, finding our kinds of guys. And there's some surprises in here as well. I think one of them was just announced with Lawrence Brown, player we really liked from Grayson, that made a decision to flip to us from our rival school. So always great to have one of those here at the end, and great outside linebacker, rusher. But when you go through the class, I think, you know, you guys can ask me individual questions about the players, but changing schemes defensively, there was a huge emphasis in getting players that we felt like were really good fits in our scheme now, with the ability to play 3 down and 4 down, and playing with linebackers that are more capable of fitting in the scheme that we have. And obviously you saw the success that Caden Fordham had in the scheme. So just, you know, finding that true inside linebacker, and then the hybrid linebackers like Kate, you saw with Kean and Trey this year. We had none of those in our program going into the year. So we had to really put an emphasis on recruiting that position. Open it up for questions.
Noah?
Dave, happy birthday, by the way. But, you know, you talked
Thank
about
you.
recruiting the Mid-Atlantic, going up to New Jersey or Pennsylvania, you know, that area. You guys haven't in the last few cycles. Now, how much did DJ Elliott kind of play a role in finding guys up there?
Yeah, I had a lot to do with it. You know, DJ being in Philadelphia, you know, coaching at Temple, and then living there and recruiting that area, and having, you know, obviously some relationships up there. And I also have, you know, from my time recruiting up there, when George McDonald was here, we went up there pretty hard, you know, and with Kelvin Harmon, Louis DeSuze, Josh Fed Jackson, Devin Leary, you know, it was a productive area for us for a while. And so when DJ started getting interest from guys up there and getting them on campus, it was easy for me as well to get back in there. Jordan Moretta, as coach, and I have a really good relationship, so it was great to rekindle that, you know, with the recruiting of Jordan. But that's what recruiting is. It's relationships. And I know there's transactional pieces now with RevShare, but there's still you know, most families want to know their kids are going to be taken care of relationship wise, and that means there's trust. And so when you have long-standing relationships with high school coaches in an area, it does make that area easier to recruit in. And DJ's obviously allowed us to do that in the Northeast.
And then just to follow up, is there a common thread with a player from that region that you've kind of seen throughout your time as a coach?
Yeah, I think they're tough kids, you know. I think it's and I don't know exactly why that's different, because I've never lived there. I've recruited there a lot in Wisconsin. We had a lot of Jersey and Pennsylvania and Ohio kids on our roster. They're tough kids, you know, and the way they're brought up, maybe the communities they're in, their fan bases, you know, the Giants and Eagles. And I mean, you look at the fan bases up there and they're pretty intense, you know, and these kids are used to competing and being around tough, hard-nosed people.
Murph?
Yeah, Dave, thanks for doing this. I wondered about some of that, you know, non-relationship stuff. When you talk about the first real recruiting class with the cap in place, and how much you talk about above the cap money that you might have to use, revenue sharing, and then to have to recruit without necessarily knowing who's going to be back on your roster because the portal hasn't opened. How much did all that play into making this even maybe a different experience than you've experienced in the past?
You know, each year's been different. And this year's probably been the easiest of all of them, because you actually know what your numbers are. And so, you know, in the past, you're hoping, because every dollar you're talking about is a dollar you got to raise as a coach, you know. And so to actually have a number that you don't have to fundraise to get to makes it a little easier to plan out. What still makes it challenging that you mentioned is our attrition comes later. And so you're adding before you know how many you really need to add, and so for us, it's, trying to get the high school players in, one that can play right away, which you saw, we've done that over the years. Some that we can develop, and we're going to develop all of them, but that won't play right away because they need a little development. But it does, you take your high school class based on who is leaving the program, like who are our seniors and things like that. And that's where the portal now has to supplement, right? And because you may have more attrition than you expected at a certain position, and you didn't sign as many high school players as you needed. And so that's where that comes into play. So it's interesting, I mean, I think I learn every year how to do it, and then it changes again, you know, and that'll happen again here. I mean, our calendar, I think every college coach would tell you, our calendar is just not in sync with the demands of what's happening in our sport. And so we need to get our arms around that to make our jobs a little bit easier from a planning standpoint. With that being said, you got to do the best you can with what you have. And I feel like this is a really good recruiting class, man. I mean, we met all our needs, and there's some more guys that you'll see coming in that accentuate the class in a positive way. And some really good players, really good kids, and some guys that can help us next year.
Jaden?
Yeah, Dave, you've talked about the significance of bringing in junior college guys and just kind of, what they add to the program. Can you talk a little bit about Josh Warren and what maybe you're hoping to see from him next season?
Josh is a really good pass rusher, and something that I've since last year, like, we got to get pass rushers in this defense. You saw the impact that Sebastian Harsh and Kean Sloan and Trey Thomas had, and they weren't guys that we had on our roster a year ago. The last 5-6 years we've been recruiting to the 3-3-5 defense, and so now that we're in a 3-4-4-2 scheme, we have to have more pass rushers, and that's what Josh is. You watch his film, and he's a dynamic pass rusher. He can bend. He's got really good speed. He's got long arms. He can play our jack position or our field end position, and so he's versatile. And you see that with these guys that we sign that are edge players, as a lot of people call them. But Elijah Satchel's that kind of player. Lawrence Brown's that kind of player. They're that hybrid player that we need more of on our roster.
JC?
You mentioned the impact Coach Elliott has had, but in a way, Coach Locklear and Coach Warren also put their spin on the guys that they got at tight end and in the secondary. What was it like to see the players that they were able to bring on board?
Yeah, I mean, with what we did on offense this year, tight end wise, it became easier to recruit nationally at that position. And the fact that, we're for sure losing 2 of our 3 tight ends, with Justin and Cody Hardy being out of eligibility. Dante is in the mix of trying to get another year. So we're hopeful for him. With the whole junior college thing, and you just never know. We might get another year for him, and we're trying. But to be able to go national at that position, because, we led the nation in touches and touchdowns and all these things with our tight ends, and we have 2 guys, maybe 3 that are done. It helped us with Stephen Brown. Like, what a great athlete, 2-sport guy, tremendous basketball player, tall, rangy. And Gavin did a great job going out and finding guys. And then, Tex was a guy that committed early to someone else. We didn't really have much of a relationship there. And then he saw what happened offensively here and how he could be used. And so, again, he came in late to the picture. We have liked him a long time. We're super excited. And he's a guy that's high school teammates with AJ Richardson, who's on our team. And AJ just bragged about how competitive and tough and athletic he was. So for us, it's great, when you have a guy that knows him differently than we do, that can give you some skinny on him. But it really helped us, and then Charlton has relationships everywhere. I mean, he's coached all over the country, and has a lot of respect across the country. And, you can see that with the guys we were able to get in the secondary.
Chris?
Hey, Coach. We had some sound sent to us from NBC affiliate down in South Carolina from Amiri Acker, and he talked about how much he felt like he was a part of a family coming to NC State, which backs up everything you want your program to be about. But then he also said he wants to make sure that he helps the team get to 13-0 next year before trying to win a national championship. And I know that those are lofty goals, but when you have a high school seniors coming in as a freshman that has that type of competitive fire, is that something that you guys look for specifically, guys that have that type of a high expectation for themselves, but also wanting to help the program get to that level as well?
Yeah, I mean, you want super ultra competitive guys. And I've always said this, you know, when you find players from winning programs and guys that are ultra competitive, it helps you. It's challenging when you sign a kid from losing program, and maybe over time they even accept what it's like to be like on a losing team. Like for me, that's not the makeup I'm looking for. And you know, Miri's comments are welcomed, and I would love for him to do that, to be able to come in and get our program to another place with all these guys. I mean, that's the goal. You know, they're not coming here to stay where we're at. They're coming here to help us get better. And that's the goal of every recruiting class, you know, and for these guys to stick together, and in a time where recruiting classes break up all the time, you know, and, you know, having them stay together and compete together and get us better together. And that's what it's all about. And our players did a good job hosting these guys. And I think talking to them about our culture, to your first comment. And I think, you know, again, I recruit the same way I coach, the same way I talk to you. I'm very direct. I'm very transparent. And I do that for a reason. I don't want a kid to come to NC State and feel like he was sold something that it isn't when he gets there. And I tell guys that in my office, like, this is what it's going to be like. This is how we work. This is how we coach. These are the things we expect. And if that's not what you want, you probably shouldn't come. And we try to find guys that are a match. You know, hey, coach, that's what I want. I want to be held accountable. I want to work hard. I want to be pushed. I want to be with people that care about me. And so, you know, we're not salesmen from a standpoint of pushing something out there that isn't real. And that's the beauty of being somewhere 13 years. You know, you can, here's the data on our program. Here's where the GPA was 13 years ago. Here's where it is now. Here's how many players we put in the NFL. Here's how many linebackers, receivers, and so on. Here's the stats at your position. Here's, you know, so I can really be a guy that presents information that over time repeats itself, and that's a predictor for them on what they're going to get when they're here. And I think when you're transparent and honest and authentic, kids like that, man. I think some of these schools they go to, they feel like it's just a song and dance, and that's the last thing I want them to feel when they're here.
Thank you.
JC?
Kind of piggybacking off of Acker, you have like a serious 400-meter dash sprint relay squad with some of these guys. Is this one of your faster classes? And then the second part is, you know, what is it like to watch someone like Tyreek Copper, who you find, and then he has these video game numbers as a senior and just explodes?
Yeah. Well, Tyreek, you know, is a great reason why you should still have high school camps. And, you know, that's where we discovered his talent, you know, and we knew his stats from last season, but we hadn't seen him in person until our high school summer camp. And when we did, we were like, holy cow, this guy is a great athlete. And got with his mom and dad, brought him in my office, offered him a scholarship, you know, in a matter of days, they had committed. And that's why you have camps. And there's a lot of schools that are reducing their number of camps because of the load we have on us now. June is a really hard month. You know, I mean, you're coaching your own players, you're having high school camps, you're having official visit weekends. It's become one of the more challenging months on the calendar. And so a lot of schools have reduced their camps because of that. I think he's a great reason why you shouldn't do that. You can still find players that other people haven't found. And to your point, I don't know. I'm the wrong guy to ask about the track times. I mean, 13 years of them. But yes, this is a fast class. There are guys that can really run in it. And if it wasn't, then I did a bad job. Like, you should be trying to get faster with your football program all the time.
Murph?
Yeah, Dave, you mentioned the 13 years. I wanted to ask, we haven't had a chance to talk to you about coming back for that 14th year and the comments that you made and Boo made about having the resources to do what you guys want to do. And then secondly, feeding into that, opening the year in Brazil. I don't know if that was an opportunity you talked to some of these guys about. Hey, we can show you the world a little bit too, if you come to NC State.
Yeah, I mean, what a great opportunity. I told the team this, like, I've been coaching 32 years of college football, and I've never been out of the country to coach a game. And so it's unique. I mean, it is a unique opportunity for these guys, and I'm so excited for them, and thankful, that Boo wanted to do it, and he was excited about it just like I was. I mean, that was a short conversation. Like, hey, do you want to play in Brazil? Hell yes, And just let's make sure it's safe for our guys. Like, that's the biggest thing. You want to have a good place to play, and you want to have security and safety and all that while you're there. And as far as being here, like, I'm having fun. And that's the thing I told everybody. Like, I'm enjoying myself. I love this team. I love these guys. I'm fired up about our recruiting class. My staff chemistry is excellent. And so, again, I think a lot of stuff was made out of somebody's comments that doesn't have the right to say those things. I mean, nobody called me and asked me. They just put some BS out there that they think is going on. And, I'm used to reporters like going to Annabelle and saying, hey, can I ask Dave, is this true, before they say something about me or write something about me? Like, that's what a reporter should do. But now we just get on podcasts and tell everybody that we have a source and we know what Dave Doeren's going to do. Like, that's such BS, So I love what I'm doing. I'm coaching my butt off. I'm having fun doing it, and I love where I'm working. And I'm going to keep doing it and, see where it takes me.
Jaden?
Yeah, back to the signing class itself. There have been some comments, just about where the class ranks and all of that stuff. How much stock do you and the staff put into some of those like recruiting numbers? And how much is kind of just like watching the film and getting a feel for these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what comments you're referring to, and they're probably people that didn't play football and don't donate to our program. And so, I don't put a lot of stock in their opinion. I think you got to go to the product. I mean, since 2020, it's either second or third number of wins in our league. And so what we're doing is pretty good. And can you always be better? Absolutely. And that's what we're trying to do, is get better. But it's not about what makes people happy on Rivals or on 3. It's about what wins games and what's your team need, and finding guys that are the right fit. They're going to represent our university, guys that I know can play well. And I think one of the best stats I saw is 7 or 8 years ago, or it was around COVID, we were top 3 in the nation at putting players in the NFL that were ranked 3 stars or less. And so, this is a developmental program that knows how to identify talent, and always has been since I got here, and will continue to be that way. And the thing I love about Boo is he wants us to get better, and he's doing everything he can to provide resources so we can be more competitive, not just from a rev share standpoint, but also from a facility standpoint. We're gutting our dining hall and putting together one of the nicest places to eat in college football for student athletes. It fires me up because nutrition is really critical for these guys. And so improving facilities and improving our rev share and all those things go together allows us to do that. But I think from a fan standpoint, you should care more about the results than you should where we're ranked. As far as I know, UNC is ranked ahead of us in recruiting every year I've been here, and compare the records.
Noah?
If you guys signed RJ Boyd today, I just wanted to kind of know what it's like for you to kind of see him go through what he has and kind of come out on the other side of it.
RJ, was in our class 2 years ago and has been battling cancer. And whenever that battle ends, I don't know when that's going to be. I know he's doing really well with his treatments, and we're hopeful, that he can be a member of our football team. We totally believe in that young man and know that he's been through hell and back with his treatment schedule. And, Coach Goebel does a great job, our running back coach, is staying in touch with them. And so, that thing is ongoing. But, he went from being a member of last year's class to this year's class. And, his prayers go out to him. And as he continues to battle and get healthy and get back to who he was as a high school athlete.
And then staying on the running back trend, you guys signed Noah Moss, a guy from Alabama, played for Phillip Rivers. What's that like, kind of being able to recruit a guy from a player, that played at NC State?
Yeah, Phillip gave us a heads up months ago about him, and we watched his film early in the season, and at that time just didn't know if we were going to take 1 or 2 or 3 backs in this class. As the season went on and, looking at our team and watching him play, because he got better and better, and he plays both sides of the ball. He's a really good defensive player too. It was obvious that he's a really good football player and, got a great pedigree. He's a winner and, a little bit bigger, 6 foot, 6'1", that can do a lot of things and will help us on special teams as well because he's a really good tackler on defense. It was a no-brainer.
All right, Murph, you want to finish this up?
Yeah, David, just wanted to ask about the quarterback that you guys signed and what kind of role you envision for him. Obviously, you've had a ton of success with Will Wilson. Looks like a different type of player, but just wondered about the QB.
Which player are you talking about?
I'm sorry. I had the name in front of me and I lost it. I was specifically asking about Jacob Smith. Sorry.
Yeah, Jacob, 2-sport athlete, and he's going to pitch here at NC State as well. Got a huge arm, athletic. We do feel like he can run. He can do a lot of the things Will's doing right now as well. To what degree, I don't know until he's doing it against college guys, but watch his high school film. He's athletic. He's tough, really competitive. And like I said, there's not many kids that are good enough to pitch in the ACC and play quarterback. And he's got the pedigree to do both. And I know Coach Avent is excited. He and I were meeting. He came up here 3 days this week just to talk to me about Jacob. We're trying to get his academic schedule set up in the spring so he can be a 2-sport athlete. And so, we're excited for him and chance to develop him. That's the other part of this. He missed his junior year of high school because he had a knee injury. So there is some developmental things with him that we're going to have to help him with as a passer and, the speed of the game in college and all those things that go with it. But we love his makeup, and he had a hell of a season. It took him as far as they've ever been in the playoffs this year as the leader of the team. So again, just another winner.
We got one more, Noah.
Yeah, kind of going off that, how do you balance, a 2-sport athlete at the college level and try to, work with baseball and kind of, how does that relationship work during the year?
Yeah, it starts with the relationship. And Elliot and I, as you guys know, are good friends, and he's a mentor to me. Love him to death. And so it's easy to sit down and say, hey, here's what we expect. Here's our dates on the calendar. Here's what we're doing. How does this fit with your calendar? And then if there's things that don't fit, all right, how can we work through this? Like I don't want them to miss a scrimmage. And so, when we get into it, like, all right, here's the things he can miss in football. Here's the things he can miss in baseball. And obviously, as a pitcher, it's different than if he's an everyday guy for them. If he's playing center field and they got to have him for every game, that's a harder thing to balance than a guy that might not pitch for, every 3 games or every 4 games or whatever it ends up being. And he may not even be in the rotation, his freshman year. So we'll have to adjust as we go. But, I think I want these guys that I recruit to have the ability. I had it with Naheem. Naheem was an All-American in track and football. Worked really well with Coach Geiger during that time. He was great to work with. And I don't expect it to be any different. We had Thayer Thomas with baseball for 1 spring, and Thayer, got drafted after that spring by Boston. So hopefully it'll work out, again, where Jacob's able to manage his time. Because that's the hardest thing, man. It's, for us to put it on the calendar for a guy is one thing. For the kid to be able to manage it is the other. And it's a massive task, time management wise, to play 2 sports and go to college at the same time. not just physically, but the mental wear down that they can have. Different for each guy.